Hi, and welcome to part 4 of population ecology. This is a horrific picture of too many humans, but we're going to come back to the human story later. For now, we're going to look at which are the factors that limit population size. So sometimes those limitations come from the actual density of the population, right? You see bunches of flamingos here. You imagine that if too many of them are crowded in one area, you're going to have all sorts of problems. What kind of problems? Well, those density-dependent factors are going to increase disease, they're going to increase competition, they're going to increase the difficulty of finding food. So all this has to do with density-dependent factors that are going to limit that population. So listed for you are competition. They could even fight, and in that case, be wounded and hurt themselves. There could be more predation because they're attracting more organisms to an area, more predators to a particular area. Parasitism, especially among birds, is rampant. And that's why they can't always use their nests more than 1 year in a row or more than 2 years in a row because they will get parasites. And then just disease from being crowded together. So other than the density-dependent factors, there are some density-independent factors. And gosh, have we not thought about those right now in California? Fires, floods, anything that nature throws at you that doesn't have to do with the density of that particular population. I want to go back and think about the effort that's allocated to reproduction in organisms because there's different strategies, correct? Some organisms are going to delay reproduction, like we talked about those tuna. But the whole trick is not to die before reproducing because you want to leave your offspring in the next population. So you can delay it, but not too late so that you're too old. On the other end of things, reproducing too early can take energy away from just the growth and maintenance of that individual. And if they're not strong enough, they're not going to do well reproducing. So it's a difficult balance. Allocating energy, right, or effort to reproduction in different organisms. So that's why we look at some of these life history analyses that we've been talking about. And we want to think of what kind of adaptations are the ones that influence reproductive success. So here are some examples of, life history where you have a grass which produces thousands of seeds, or a palm tree that produces, these coconuts, but fewer of them, but a greater investment in time and energy by the plant. And the same goes for animals, of course. So we say that life histories fall into two general patterns that are shaped by this natural selection. It's either opportunistic, like make lots of thousands of seeds and let them be, or an equilibrium species that can actually take care of those seeds but have a whole lot fewer of them, but hang on to them and protect them until they can be dispersed. A really interesting story of an opportunistic species is the Christmas crab, Christmas Island crab. I put a video for you in the other section that you definitely should look at. These crabs reproduce, they have thousands of eggs, and the floor, the ground seems to be moving with these little tiny crabs. And they don't receive any parental care. A lot of them get eaten by organisms like ants even, and have some really nice videos on that. So thousands of them, and very few of them will make it to adulthood. This is kind of like the type 3 survivorship curve. The equilibrium species tends to be long-lived, mature very late, and they receive extended parental care. This little giraffe is getting parental care from the parent, is going to stick by it for a long period of time. I want you to read a very interesting article when it comes to population ecology, and it's called The Big Kill, and it's about mammals in New Zealand. It turns out that New Zealand has some amazing birds, and a lot of them nest on the ground, and mammals were never native to New Zealand. They've been brought in, including humans. So the question here that has come up recently among biologists, feuding biologists, they have opposing views, is that should humans, which by the way is a mammal, eradicate all other invasive animals on the island? So there's an idea that maybe in New Zealand they should get rid of all mammals because it's been invaded by rats and cats, and they're eating away at that local fauna which New Zealand has, which is very unique in its birds. And all these introductions have damaged those populations pretty severely. So The Big Kill is an article that I need you to read because there will be a couple of questions on quizzes and on the exam that relate to this really interesting article. And now we get back to human population growth, which is definitely exponential. This picture is frightening and during COVID, isn't it? So human populations in the world, this is 1800s, which is when we have better records. Of course, if we go back, like period of most, 8,000 BC, before Common Era, we think that population was very low, and it wasn't until later that these populations start to rise. So this is a little bit of a guess here. So let's just take it to late 1800s, where we think there's about 1 billion humans. And look what's happening over time. 1900s, 2 billion, and 60s, 3 billion. And we are heading up here to 7 billion. Very different. Our lives are very different when we have this number of humans, right? There have been some blips in this growth, like this exponential growth. Here, the bubonic plague that gave it a dip and then went right back up again. So how large will the human population be in 2050? Will it be 8? Will it be 10? Who knows? And these are important issues to be thinking about. It's very complicated. So we know that much of the current growth in the human population is due to high birth rates in less developed countries. So if you look at the map, less developed countries is most of South America, Africa, Asia, India, all these countries. So we're excluding, Europe, these Nordic countries, Australia, North America, Greenland. And look at the population in billions is growing so dramatically, much less so in the darker blue here areas where individuals are having fewer children. So we use these age structure diagrams to help predict trends in population. See if you can understand how they work. They are a graph that's based on age group, age distribution, like we did before, like we talked about before. So this is very young children, age 0 to 4, teen years, 30s, 40s, 60s, 70s. And the graph is showing how many of that population you have. And this is in blue male, and in short, whatever color that is, darker pink, is the female. And in comparing something like United States, it's pretty stable. Do you notice how down here over the number of youth is similar to that of the number of people in their reproductive years? Not so in India, where you still have many more young people that are then going to grow into the reproductive years and have more children. So this is definitely a growing population. This is more stable when the sides are down like this. And a declining population is one that the number of children, that young children here, is lower than that of the reproductive years. So these reproductive age humans are having fewer than 2 children. They're not actually replacing themselves. So this is the China effort of 1 child only, and they've now gone back on that because they're finding that they don't have enough of the young population to move into those jobs and work jobs mostly needed of a population that's aging. So this is just enlarged for you so that when you print it out, when I show it to you in 6 per page, you can see it growing, stable, US, and declining in China. In general, birth rates are tending to decline. And why do you think that is? Because it's very expensive to have children. And, gone are the days, or fewer are the days, of 8 children, 9 children in a family. That is very difficult to maintain. So another issue that we want to look at is how much land area do you need to support that many people, and to support that many people in the lifestyle that they currently have. And you keep having children. So when you look at a map like this is kind of what the map should look like. And then you look at United States here, sort of bloated. And the reason it's bloated is because we need more land mass. We actually need to expand that to support, our population and the lifestyle that population has or expects to have. So look at some other countries, or look at South America. This is the size of South America, but it's shrunk down because actually, given their lifestyle and their population, they could do with even less land. Look at Africa, and look at Japan. So Japan is seriously out of space. So these are so interesting to look at these, because it gives us an insight into what's coming, years to come. Europe also, they use many more resources than they actually have the land for. And that's a problem that we're going to have to face in the future. The last section of this chapter is a research study, and I'm going to go over it. It's called Investigating Life, Let Your Love Light Shine. This is very interesting. This population of fireflies, or lightning bugs, whatever you want to call them. And they flash, the males flash, and the females pick the males. So this is sexual selection, where they're actually looking to see whether this male is good enough for them or not. And they want to both increase their reproductive success. So the male wants to advertise what a great male he is, and the female wants to be able to choose. So the actual flashing of the firefly is a signal. But what we want to think about is that, does that signal indicate the quality the males offer? So if you had a really flashy male, and he flashed, and flashed frequently, does that mean that it is indeed a better male? And the less flashy male is going to have a lower reproductive success. Does it translate to reproductive success or not? That's the question. In fireflies, males offer a gift to the females. And this gift is a packet. And in the packet is sperm, which the female will use to fertilize her eggs. But also, it's loaded with protein. And that provides nourishment for the developing offspring. So, if she gets a better packet that has more protein in it, then her offspring are going to do better. So it would behoove her to be able to evaluate that packet before she actually accepts it, correct? That she can tell that this packet is a good one and that it's going to behoove her offspring. So these group of researchers did a study asking whether flashy males were truly indicators of reproductive success. So they took that little packet, and that packet is called a spermatophore. So sperm has sperm in it, atophore. So the spermatophore could be bigger or smaller, and this is the mass of that. So they can get bigger. And along with the size of that packet, the bigger gift, comes also a duration of your flash in milliseconds. So for how long you can actually flash. So the flashiest of males, does that male truly have a bigger gift, right? A bigger spermatophore, which means more protein for the young. And they plotted it on this graph here, and they come up with a line like this, the best fit, meaning that it looks like it, that the longer the flash duration, the better the spermatophore. So it is an indicator of reproductive success. So the female can't really evaluate the mass of the spermatophore, but she could evaluate the flash duration, and she sits there in the bushes looking at these flashes. Like we do when we're in the East Coast and we see these. They're so amazing. So in answering that question, are flashy males indicators of reproductive success? And the answer is yes. Yes, they are. Get my pen here. So this team went on to do a second set of experiments. And that was to study the response by the females to these flashy males. So in this graph you have the female response, right? She's going to come closer and try and come closer to the male. And they are going to simulate a flash duration. So instead of getting males to flash for this experiment, what they do is they got a very small flashlight that they could alter the frequency, the duration in milliseconds of that flash, and mimic what the males are doing, and then watch the females in a lab to see whether they actually approach this male or not, if they were interested in this flashing. And so they picked a couple of different frequencies here in milliseconds, and one was 80 millisecond flash, and another one is 108, and another is 132. And just to pick, a small, medium, and large. And then they watched the percentage of females that responded to that. And the answer was, do they respond to the 80? Oh yeah, they liked 80. Do they respond to 108? Oh yeah, they liked that even more. So then let's make it higher. What about 132? And that one, they didn't respond to as much. Why not? The question here then was, do females prefer fast flashing males? And the answer was, it depends. Up to about 108. We don't know if there's another number in between here that would be good, but 132 is definitely too flashy. So what did they learn? It turns out that this doesn't happen in nature. This is something that the researchers mimicked, and they can do it with a flashlight, but it doesn't really happen in nature. And those female fireflies figured it out. They said, that is not a male. That's something else. We're not interested. But this flashy male, that's a good one. So very interesting studies about choice in this population of fireflies. There's a question here that I'm going to end with, and that is, a male firefly with a small spermatophore could cheat, right? He could lie by using a really long flash. And what might be the consequence in the short term of this? So think about it. Here's a male firefly saying, hey, I'm going to flash long, even though my spermatophore and my protein in it is not very big. So what would happen in the short term? In the short term, the females would all pick that one. And because it was a fast flashing male. But in the long term, what would happen to the reliability of the flash duration signal if many males cheated in this way? So then it would no longer become reliable. And not only that, but genetically also, you would have many more males being born with a small spermatophore. So it would become really important for the female to be able to discern the cheater and the not cheater. So maybe she would no longer use that as a cue, the duration, because you can cheat on it. So she'd have to evaluate in a different way. Very interesting how natural selection works. Okay, that's it for this chapter. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye.